Plunder Comic Explored. John Carpenter's The Thing is one film that aged exactly like wine. Despite initial critical and commercial failure, movie buffs and critics learned to appreciate the beauty that it was. The Thing succeeded because of elegantly scary special effects by Rob Bottin, but served best for the film was the paranoia, suspicion, mistrust, gore, and classic Carpenterian horror. Prominent filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino, Neil Blomkamp, and Guillermo del Toro have often regarded John Carpenter's The Thing as a source of inspiration. Many films like Blood Glacier, The Last Winter, and Black Mountainside tried to recreate Carpenter's work, but The Thing and its monster also inspired several comics, the most credible being Jonathan Lang's 4-issue comic titled Plunder. It is essentially a grindhouse comic set in the middle of the ocean where a group of pirates find themselves on a research vessel that has found something sinister. The protagonist of the story is not a chopper pilot like Kurt Russell's R.J. McReady, but a 14-year-old boy who wants to redeem himself. Painting a similar picture of claustrophobia and paranoia, Lang's comic is a must-read for all horror fans. In this video, we will explore Lang's Plunder, which feels like the baby of The Thing, and Junji Ito's several monsters. Let's begin, shall we? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Number 1. Issue number 1. The story revolves around a boy named Badoon from Ale Harbor, an ancient port town in the northeastern Nugal region of Somalia in the autonomous Puntland region. He was a fisherman's son, but he did not like what his father did for a living. Badoon wanted a more adventurous life than that of a fisherman, and he joined the Badinta Bada, or Saviors of the Sea. The Somali term roughly translates to the Coast Guard in English, but they were far from Coast Guards. In reality, Badoon had joined a band of pirates, or Burkhad Badid. The Somali don't really have a term for sea pirates in their language, and Burkhad Badid basically means ocean robbers. Badoon came across the group when he once saw them buying alcoholic drinks, or kat. Seeing them, he thought sailing with the Badadin to Bada would be some real adventure, and rightly so. His dreams had come true, but not in the way he quite expected. In the first panel of the comic, we get to see two ships exchanging gunfire while a red-colored flesh-like object protrudes from the ocean. This very organic matter in the bottom right corner of the panel is a reminder enough of what is to come. It's almost like one of those Shakespearean plays where the playwright would set the tone of the play in the first scene of the first act. Anyway, Badoon was not really the pirate type, you see. When their ship came under attack, Badoon tried his best to fire, but his fingers simply wouldn't pull the trigger. He kept repeating what he had been told about firing a gun. Line up the sight, pull the trigger. He was almost chanting these words, but they were of no help. Two of the Somali pirates, Disco and Deadtooth, were hard at battle, aiming and shooting. The former asked him to use the gun, but Badoon chose to flee the scene instead. He ran as hard as he could, but tripped before the ship's captain, Internet. Yep, that's his name, Internet. Turns out that Internet was a real badass and resourceful guy. He was the one who gathered the money from scratch and put the crew together. According to some people, he kept all the numbers in his head, which ensured that there is no trace of the money. However, his intellect was no match for his cruelty. And honestly, if you gotta be a Somali pirate captain, you gotta be cruel. Furthermore, there was something about Internet that tended to intimidate his crew. They believed that he had some kind of vision that helped him evade death. However, the truth was that Internet was great with his gun, and his foresight didn't reach past the barrel of his gun. I believe that's more important in Internet's line of business. You only remain alive if you're good at killing.
A mad fucker like you lives this long. I'm good at killing people.
Moving on, Internet rebukes Badoon for being the disappointment that he was and asks him to run the engine and get it started. However, the engine's powerhead had been cracked due to gunfire. Stain was working on the engine, a man whose left side of the face was hideously disfigured. It turns out that Stain's mother drank some poisoned water from a well when she was pregnant with him, and it left him a scar that could not be healed. But Stain was having some trouble with a guy named Trouble, a man whose hand was chopped off when he was caught stealing. He couldn't fish anymore, so Trouble joined the pirates. Anyway, nothing that anyone could do was enough to restart the engine, and their only option was rowing their pirate ship. When someone said that they had to lose some deadweight, Internet threatened to drop Badoon into the water, but Stain came to the kid's rescue. So Badoon was taken in by Internet because the kid was good with languages. He could read from the age of 4 and served as the crew's translator. I guess Stain was something of a mystery and was kind in his own special way. Nevertheless, the crew managed to get away because they rode through the sea. Soon we get to learn about more of the pirates. Disco used to be a rich kid who had spent 6 months in rehab. Stitches used to work as a volunteer aid worker, but he got tired of watching the warlords stealing the relief money. Although he kept a weapon on his shoulder, he kept God in his heart. And lastly, Deadtooth was someone who had a thing for gory magazines, but he was also a murderer on the run. After rowing to some distance, the pirates saw something in the distance. A vessel that they thought could be a pirate ship, but they were making their way towards something sinister. A gigantic red tentacle was lurking in the salty waters. Internet sends Trouble and Stain as the first ones on the stranded vessel, but knowing that they might need a translator, he sends Badoon along. The men make the climb. One of them says Maturka Demi, which was Somali for turn off the engine, but the vessel was as dead as the pirate ship. And, as they would learn in a bit, there was a death spread across all corners of the vessel. On the deck, they found some kind of light purple colored liquid, which Trouble thought came from whales. But Internet was not going to entertain such spy shit, and Trouble found himself knocked down. Soon they found blood, but there was no scales on the deck, meaning it was not a fishing ship. Strangely enough, no crew member was to be found anywhere, not on the deck and not even below. But the crew was in for a bit of a shock, and that's saying something because they were pirates. Internet found an arm clasping a metal door. On this severed arm, there was a patch which read SS Seeker. But what was a SS ship doing in the middle of an ocean? By now, the comic has set a certain benchmark for itself. The feeling of claustrophobia has set in, much like John Carpenter's The Thing, but more horrors are yet to present themselves to the pirates. The interior of the ship was filled with the same strange blood-like liquid. When Stain touched it, the liquid came to life and strangled Stain's hand. If you'd remember, this was the kind of behavior that The Thing from John Carpenter's film displayed. A peculiar and exciting aspect of The Thing's biology is that all of the parts of its body, each cell, tissue, organ, and blood act as individual organisms when under attack and follow the fight or flight behavior. Likewise, the creature from Plunder also seems to behave similarly. Stain lost his balance and fell, but seemed just fine the next moment. He then found some human blood on the floor, but what he saw next terrified him. There was a dead man with severed limbs, but that was not all. Some kind of strange organs were protruding from the back of this dead man's neck. But Internet was concerned about the crew that he thought was hiding somewhere on the ship. But Internet's crew was finding increasingly horrid and mutilated corpses every other minute. The crew members were obviously horrified by what they were seeing, and Internet too wanted to get out of SS Seeker as soon as possible. So he sent Disco and Badoon to the upper levels to seek the equipment they needed for their pirate ship. The two boys reached the kitchen, only to find the chef cutting his own fingers and cooking them. If that did not gross you out, consider this. He was eating himself and probably others because there was a plate on which a human head was resting, skull open and flies hovering over it. It seemed that the chef was a walking corpse, something that had taken over his body and mind. Disco attempted to shoot the undead self-eater, but Badoon stopped him, fearing someone could hear the gunshots. And that was a grave mistake he made, because it was not before long that Disco was attacked and killed. However, Badoon did shoot the abomination down. Number 2. Issue 2. The second issue of Plunder begins with Badoon trying to clean off the blood of the chef he had just shot. However, the blood looked and felt different to Badoon. It was thinner than normal human blood and was also stickier, making it difficult to wipe off. While Badoon was trying to get the blood off his t-shirt, he did not notice that an eel-like organism was coming out of the dead chef's skull. Internet and Stain found Badoon lurking down a staircase and inquired what happened to Disco. Badoon narrated his horrific ordeal, but you know, the story of a cook eating himself was a bit too much to believe. Internet asked him to carry on with a given task of finding the machine parts, but this time Stain offered to accompany him. If you'd remember, the infected people from John Carpenter's The Thing often behave normally around others. The parasitic alien mimicked not only the host's physical body, but also the brain. The ability helped it to look and function exactly like its host. The Thing almost always looked for ways to find other hosts in secluded places so that no one would see it assimilate with the host. Something similar was happening here. Stain had been infected by the parasitic organism and was trying to take Badoon away from everyone else. Badoon and Stain found more bodies lying around. The crew members of SS Seeker had gone through something really terrible, and the pirates were preparing for a similar fate by staying on the vessel of death. The two of them reached the vessel's laundry, where the washing machines were still running. Stain looked into one of them, and the spinning clothes had a hypnotic effect on him. As you know, Stain was from a very humble background, so much so that his mother used to wash the clothes by the river, but that's how sorry the condition and economy of Somalia are. Nevertheless, Stain was now having a hallucination of sorts in which he was a fairly rich man. In this vision, his face was without any ugly scars. His butler was helping him with a suit which Stain was to wear for a party he had thrown. We learned that Stain's real name was Osman. and he was a man loved by the ladies. Stain found himself dancing with one of the women. However, the circumstances and the vision suddenly changed. The girl he was dancing with pushed him away, and the butler attacked Stain for touching a girl without her permission. Stain charged back, but he was actually beating up Badoon. Stain would have killed Badoon had the boy not shot Stain. Meanwhile, Internet and the others found themselves in a sort of lab. The room had a massive pile of asymmetric flesh that was probably being studied earlier. One of the men found a diary note which was talking about a crashed UFO. Clearly, the comic follows the same plot points as The Thing. You know, aliens assimilating with their hosts, some good old overkill pile of bodies, etc. Furthermore, the men found another creature confined in a cylindrical chamber. This was when they heard some noise coming from behind them. Upon inspection, they found a crew member of SS Seeker. This woman was Dr. Donna Fry, the research team leader. Trouble wanted to kill her, but Donna offered to help. She knew the ship up and down, and naturally with her help, it would be easier for the pirates to find what they were looking for. As time passed, the men fast-tracked their search, but Stain was the man who knew the mechanics better than anyone else. As Internet and the others wondered where he was, Badoon came to them and once again narrated his ordeal. However, Internet does not trust one word that Badoon had to say. Internet had lost 2 men who left with Badoon, and he did not want a 3rd man down. He would have killed Badoon, but to Badoon's utter shock and horror, Stain arrived at the spot, seeming unscathed from the gunshot. He had healed completely. But the question was how. Badoon cried, "I blew his face apart. He cannot be breathing. He's a monster. You must believe me." But Badoon's words fell on deaf ears, or maybe violent deaf ears. Nevertheless, Stain got to work and started to extract the necessary parts that the pirates required for the ship. But in the process, he slashed his palm, and the same purple-pink ooze came out of his hand. Stitches noticed this and said probably severe nerve damage should be enough pain to make a man pass out, and your blood doesn't look right. But Stain was standing as if nothing happened. To make it worse, a small maw emerged from the gash and attacked Stitches. Stain's cover had been blown, and within no time, this man transformed into a hideous monstrosity which pretty much resembled the love child of the Blair Thing and the Dog Thing from Carpenter's film. Stain's body quite literally ripped open, and one could see inhuman organs and various sets of teeth appearing in off places. The final form of the monster was enormous in size and had several tentacles that ended in sharp ends. Stain hardly resembled a man anymore and was attacking the pirates left, right, and center. Trouble tried to shoot the monster down using an RPG, but he was ripped apart in several pieces, definitely not a death that anyone would want. However, Badoon soon gathered enough strength and willpower to grab the RPG and shoot it at the beast. But the pirates were still clueless about what they were dealing with. It was now that Dr. Donna Frey revealed something strange. According to her, the creature in the liquid tank was not hostile like the others, but Internet did not trust her one bit and wanted to take her down. However, Badoon came to the rescue, and Donna agreed to tell the pirates everything about the creatures. Number 3, Issue 3. Donna then narrates the story of how the elegant mess came into being. Frederick Lebesco, a rich diamond baron from South Africa, commissioned Donna and her team to study what was killing the reeds in the Gulf of Aden. The science guys dove into the darkness, searching for how to eliminate the toxicity and restore the balance. Soon they found an alien spacecraft, a technological marvel that stunned them. The craft was made of a substance that was lighter than graphite, but its tensile strength was stronger than that of steel. As they approached the craft, it started to change its colors in an attempt to conceal itself. However, the camouflage did not quite work. From the craft, they found organisms, alien organisms, that looked like jellyfish with nematocysts or stinging cells that are used to defend and feed on prey. Also, much like jellyfish, this creature never stopped growing. However, there still remained characteristics that were completely different from jellyfish. For instance, while jellyfish are 95% water, this alien creature was 75% solid mass. It had an exoskeleton that was leathery and tough, much like a rhinoceros, if rhinos were aquatic creatures. But what was most interesting was that despite having bilateral and symmetrical anatomy, the creature was capable of dividing itself completely. This was not a defensive muscular response, but an action that was guided by the creature's central nervous system. When it was dissected, each part became an organism in its own right. I mean, imagine if you see a lizard's tail become an intelligent organism with consciousness. Wouldn't that scare the shit out of you? Much like Carpenter's alien monster, this creature was a master of rearranging its anatomical, cellular, as well as genetic makeup. Anyway, as is the case with scientists, Donna and her crew tried to build communication with the alien creature. A man named Barry managed to build that connection, and the aliens started communicating through senses. However, Donna learned that the creature could tap into the host's thinking and even memories. So you see, this is how the creature was able to take over the memory and intelligence of Stain. This ability helped it to blend with the others without being discovered. But the alien from Plunder went a step ahead. These creatures could not just tap into the memories, but they could make the host see exactly what the host desired, and these hallucinations were as real as the device you're using to watch this video. However, Internet had enough of this scientific blabber, or that's what his puny mind thought it was. He asked Donna why he shouldn't just kill her right away, but Donna was the only person who knew what these creatures were, and she made Internet see her worth. By now, Internet's men had found enough scarp to fix the carburetor and decided to leave the vessel as soon as possible. Internet started calling this monster Lewiatan, the Somali word for Leviathan. Unfortunately, Deadtooth, another member of the pirate crew, got infected by the alien creature. Deadtooth started having all the weirdest hallucinations, one in which he transformed into an insect. Internet wanted to find Deadtooth, and Donna promised to treat him, but Deadtooth had dispersed from the lifeless ship. The pirates came to the deck to find themselves in extremely rough waters. And yet, Internet did not want to leave without Deadtooth. But to make things worse, Stitches was now hallucinating and living his scariest nightmare. He saw the rotting bodies of the men and women from the camp where he used to serve as a volunteer. Stitches always feared what must have happened to the poor souls after he left the camp to work with the pirates. And now, his fears had come to life. Stitches tries to tell the imaginary corpses that he helped and saved them, but they felt differently. You saved yourself, you turned away when we needed you, and now we are taking you with us to the cold side. It's a tiny place, a hole filled with nothingness. Turns out, Stitches used to give lethal injections to the people at the camp. He had convinced himself that by doing so, he was releasing the poor men and women of their miseries. I tried to stop the pain, the suffering. Do you think that was an easy choice? And now the people he had killed had come for their revenge. Stitches was fighting his imaginary corpses with all his might, but in reality, he was beating Internet. The pirate captain lost his cool and attacked Stitches. He smashed Stitches' head so hard with a book that it impaled his forehead. But just as he did that, the monster in Stitches revealed itself, attacking Internet and others. Meanwhile, Badoon had a moral transformation. He remembered the story of Mohammed Abdullah Hassan from his history classes in school. Hassan spent his life fighting off the British troops who had come to occupy Somalia. The Brits called him Mad Mullah and believed that he was waging a war of terror against the British. But you see, one man's terrorist is another man's revolutionary. Badoon was now relating himself with Mohammed Abdullah Hassan and wanted to defend his home from all the invaders, no matter if they came from the depths of space instead of Britain. Badoon got a hold of a grenade and blew the pirate ship, thus ensuring that no one escaped from SS Seeker. The thing became a horror classic because of several reasons, and one of the major contributing factors has to be the way John Carpenter dealt with the emotions of claustrophobia, paranoia, and fear. Likewise, the writers of Plunder made sure that the comic is filled with similar dreadful feelings. Number 4. Issue 4. Badoon comes to Internet and Donna, who seems to be the only survivors. Internet is clearly pissed off because Badoon had just exploded their only means of escape. Nevertheless, Donna reveals that she knows how to operate the alien craft. But that sounds a bit suspicious, doesn't it? I mean, she was more of a biologist, right? How and when did she learn enough to operate alien technology? Nevertheless, Internet realized that he had no choice but to follow her. But all hell breaks loose when the three of them enter the engine room. Internet gets brutally manhandled by a huge alien tentacle. In no time, he transforms into a giant blob of hostile flesh, looking to kill anything that moved. Donna asked Badoon to move towards the cooling unit, and the creature followed him. It attacked Badoon, infecting him, but Donna shot cooling pipes, and the creature was destroyed. Donna knew that the sudden and extreme shifts in temperature made the cellular integrity of the alien unstable. In reality, she had used Badoon as bait. Badoon was now under the influence of the alien's mind-bending powers and was seeing his father. But Badoon was stronger in mind than body. He managed to break through his hallucination, something that no one else in the story was able to do. Donna helped Badoon get on his feet, and the two of them reached the alien craft. She got into the craft and tried to hotwire it, but the alien craft was not something to be meddled with. She had messed up with something really bad and burned herself to death. Badoon was still fighting the alien from taking over his mind. It was now that Internet revealed his presence known to Badoon. He had somewhat transformed into an alien, but that was just the beginning. Internet then attacked Badoon with his tentacle, which went through Badoon's shoulder. The connection made Badoon see images from the alien's homeworld. These jellyfish-like aliens were carbon-based life forms and needed water to survive. It was their food as well as fuel. However, after a meteorite struck their planet, it became uninhabitable and they started to look for other worlds with water. They found Earth with the intent of taking over the blue planet. While Internet was still explaining all of this, Badoon managed to light up the former. He had bought himself enough time to make an escape, but on the way, he came across the other members of his pirate crew, some mutilated and transformed beyond recognition. One of the transformed heads bit Badoon's leg, making him trip and fall. This bears a sharp resemblance to Norris Thing's head, which developed spider legs and attempted to hide. Nevertheless, Badoon ran again and reached the upper level, where he tricked the now transformed internet near a pile of fuel canisters. Badoon remembered what Donna had said about these aliens and the sudden change in temperature. He shot the fuel canisters, and the resultant explosion engulfed the creature before sinking SS Seeker. However, Badoon had found enough time to jump from the vessel and into the water. It wasn't before long that a defense chopper reached ground zero and located Badoon floating in the water. But Badoon was failing to differentiate between reality and hallucination, and he knew that he had been infected by the alien. He could not climb the ladder offered to him by the rescue chopper and chose to stay behind. Undoubtedly, one of the aliens had been left behind in the waters. The comic ends exactly like John Carpenter's movies, where McReady and Childs are the only survivors of US Outpost 31. Although it was not revealed in the movie which among them was infected by the Thing, the comics revealed that it was in fact Childs. To know more about the Thing's stories beyond the movies, you could check out our video titled Spine-Chilling the Thing Stories Behind the Films. What happened after the movies? Explained. We'll leave a link in the description. Number 5. Future of the comic. According to the latest news, Mile and Oren Cools have confirmed a live-action adaptation of the comic, with Alec Gillis taking charge of the part of the special effects. Gillis is a veteran special effects guy, having worked with the legendary Stan Winston on projects such as Alien and Predators. We hope that the movie will stay grounded in its source material without chopping off the visceral violence. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.